Okay, so this week is about establishing a setting for something, some kind of structure. It's coming up with a structure and it's establishing a setting for the structure. And the way that I like to think about setting is I like to start with, I kind of went over this before, but I like to start with a basic grid. So taking a something like that, which totally out of focus. Now it's in focus. Taking something like that and moving it to this. And what it's helping me to do is it's helping me to conceptualize space, right? And so I can just kind of move this thing around in space. And as it goes further back, the increments get smaller. Okay, and so I'm starting to think of a space here, and then the next thing that I want to start to imagine is I want to start to say, how would a given structure start to interact with this space? Okay, so for instance, if I took a structure that was going to be based in rectangles, let's just say I'm going to take a rectangle, and one way that I can have the rectangle interact with these spaces is it can be wedged into it, right? So here, this rectangle has been wedged into this space. So one of the examples that I gave you was Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright. And so here we have a rectangle cantilevered over a kind of a drop here, and it might be interesting. So it starts to become a kind of an interesting space, right? And I could take it and I could say, I've got the basic design rule of big, medium, small. I might take this and think to myself, like, what happens if I go along with this, if I look to add to this with several medium size okay. And so this is generating a structure that I'm starting to imagine a structure like this. I want to continue the space around it. So it kind of gets exciting, right? It's kind of like, wow, what's going on with this space? It's like, is this a waterfall? Like, what's happening through all of this? And okay, so the next thing that I kind of wanted for you to imagine was, I mean, I need for you to start to explain to me human scale with relationship to the structures that we're building. One way to express human scale is with the size of the windows. So if the windows are like this big and if they're this far apart, we start to think of the human scale as being really, really small, and that makes this kind of grand, this like really grand structure. Okay. There's two ways in the early that I think that structures go with the land. One of them, I mean, the way that, well, let's just say there's three ways. Okay, so we'll do. I'm gonna make three separate structures here, and they will interact with the land in three different ways. Okay, so here's a structure that's wedged into the land. It's now I'm going to build a structure over here that is more continuing the gesture of the land. Okay, so the gesture here is swooping this way and it's moving this way. And if I had a structure, I might base a structure on a kind of ribbon. Like I'm looking to work with this line. And what if I took this line and I just sort of increased it? Right? So here I'm gonna build a ribbon. Essentially, I'm just building a ribbon. And here's the ribbon. And we practiced ribboning in class a great deal. So here's a structure that takes the gesture of the land and pushes it a little bit further. Let me see what I can do to get the camera's not really focusing. There you go. So where the land had this as its gesture, now I've increased it with this. And it's at this point, it's just a ribbon, but I can take the ribbon and turn it into a structure. Like I could say, I could imagine that this part in here is filled in. And again, looking to talk about the human scale, I'm just going to put a couple of windows across it in perspective, right? So those could be windows that go across it. And this is starting to look really futuristic, which I like. You know, this could be, we could have like, you know, this could be an opening here for transports or something like that. Here, this is a mistake, this tangent. You would either want to cover, you would want this to go further. Okay, so here's a structure that works with the gesture of the land. Here's a structure that wedges itself into the land. And then another possibility is a structure that just sits on top of the land. Like if I took a structure here and I looked for, I might create a level platform. Here's a level platform. And the platform would have to be wedged into the land. And then I'm going to design a spherical shaped structure in here. Okay, so there's a little spherical shaped structure that essentially sits on top of the land. And now we have like a kind of an interesting little compound. Here's the land behind it. And we can imagine these structures as associated by like underground tunnels or something like that, or we could build bridges that connected them. Perhaps this would be, there could be an interesting unit. Something like that. Okay. So this is kind of the first part of our assignment. I'm looking for you to conceptualize a place, conceptualize a geographic setting, and start to locate buildings within it, locate structures that would be human habitat. And then this becomes something like, once you start to, if you did a few of these and you found something that was really interesting to you, then you could go about starting to solve lesser details. So we have the general shape of the land, and now we might start to consider, like, maybe this is like this rock, maybe everything that's in here is built of rocks. And we worked on, in class, we worked on how to render rocks. But if you had these like wonderful giant rocks that go cascading downward, and these are these like massive rocks. This place is built on and trees. You can add trees to it. Here's foliage. And we can show the difference between the rock and the foliage with texture. Okay, so we're showing the relationship to the landscape, we're showing foliage, we're showing geography, we're showing like a shape language we've designed a place into the landscape, and we want to show materiality. That's another thing that's like very useful for us. I'm thinking that these places would be made of a kind of a, like, I don't know, they might be made of stone or something like that, some kind of like polyresin, something. How am I going to show it? I'm kind of thinking of these. I started thinking of like these blocky surfaces. Thinking of these big kind of resinous, like maybe glass, like plexiglass, tinted plexiglass panels or something like that, that would run the length of the place, make it a kind of an amazing interior structure. Maybe the outer walls have a kind of corrugated steel. I'm going to put some more windows down in here. More foliage down here. Rock. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm talking about. It's like it's an environment, okay? It's got just these basic ingredients, the materiality, scale. I'm working in a sketch perspective, right? I didn't pull out my uh, 1 and 2 and 3 point perspective. I'm just really using my sketching tools. But there's also a sense of the material that these things are made of. There's a sense of the scale that they're operating at. They feel very like the shapes, all of it feels very like Star Wars to me. Starting to imagine a kind of massive transport up here. Sort of docked on top of this place. Okay, the point being that we're starting from a very simple language, okay? So we're starting from just like really, really basic simple shapes like what we've been working with the entire semester, okay?